Hello, beautiful. Welcome to The Beauty of Aging, a channel for every woman who's unapologetically growing bolder. If you're a returning viewer, thanks so much for coming back. And if you're new, welcome to the community. I'm Angel, the founder of Maison 276 and creator of the award-winning 3-step system for silver, gray, and blonde hair, a healthy way to brighten, cleanse, and restore the natural brilliance of your hair without the use of purple dyes. On The Beauty of Aging, we talk about a lot of topics: beauty, fashion, lifestyle, wellness. And today's topic comes directly from your questions. Silver hair is not difficult. It's just different. Today, I'm answering your most frequently asked questions about silver and gray hair care. How to keep your silver or gray hair from looking dull, yellow, lifeless. Or maybe you're curious about embracing your silver or gray hair, but you're concerned that it'll make you look dated. You are not alone, but you're in the right place. We're about to get right into it as I dig into your questions. Okay, guys, let's get comfortable. As we get settled, outfit of the day, this top is from a denim suit. The bottom is actually a skirt. If you're new to this channel, I'm a little bit denim obsessed. And then the pants are cargo sweatpants from the Scuba Knit collection at Walmart. Now, I've got my phone here with all of the questions, but before I begin to answer your questions about silver and gray hair, let's first talk about the structural changes and the difference between your melanated hair and your silver hair. It's important to remember that our hair is just like our skin. It changes as we mature. And while you may have the healthiest skin of a 50, 60, and 70-year-old, it's still not the same skin that you had when you were 20 or 30. So think of your hair the same way. Now, the most significant way that our hair changes as we mature is over time, our hair follicles will stop producing melanin. Melanin is the thing that gives your hair color. And so when that follicle stops producing melanin, whatever color your hair used to be, brown, black, brunette, redhead, that hair will now be white or gray. And there are variations of the gray scale from pure white to gray to silver to pewter. Now, when that happens, in addition to losing color, there are also some structural changes. The texture is different. And that's why you will often hear women say, that silver strand is so disrespectful, or it's wiry. It's just completely different hair. The texture will change. And because it no longer has melanin, which is a form of protection for our hair, now it's more susceptible to sun damage, heat damage. And because it lacks melanin, it's also going to absorb the color of any styling products that it comes in contact with. So now that you have that base foundation of why silver and gray hair is different, then that'll help you know the best ways to take care of it. Okay, so let's get started. The very first question, and the one that I get most often, whether it's online or in person: how did you transition to gray silver hair, and what helped you stay confident during that phase? So my silver story is a little, well, I used to think it was different, but it's actually not that different, in that I began turning silver very young in life. Like, my mom found my first silver strand when I was a little girl. I was so young, she was still combing my hair. And so I've literally grown up with this hair. And even as young as my 20s and 30s, I began to understand the challenges of having silver or gray hair. Obviously, I didn't have as much as I had now, but I had enough, realized that I had to take special care of it. And I never colored my hair until my mid-30s. Now, what happened then? That's when we had our second child. And for whatever reason, the streak that I had previously had, now my silver came in everywhere. And while it was a little surprising to me because I had never colored my hair, it was just still a part of me. But that was the first time in my life that people began to give me unsolicited advice on what to do with my silver hair. And people asked me if my infant child was my granddaughter. And so for the first time in my life, I began to question, should I have gray hair at this young age? And I actually colored it, and it was a huge mistake, and I realized it right from the beginning. But that taught me a lot about what it means to be comfortable in your skin. And so I can empathize with women of all ages when they want to embrace their silver hair. So the way that I transition, now you got to remember, this is in the mid to late 90s. There was no social media, no silver hair movement, nobody to look at that was growing out your hair. But because I was just so frustrated with the way that I looked, I wasn't happy with how I looked with colored hair. It was like I was wearing a hat every day. And so I cut all my hair and I actually wore freestyle braids to grow it out. At that time, they did make braiding hair in salt and pepper. And so that was how I grew out my silver. Now, I would say there's no right or wrong way to transition. The right way is the way that feels most comfortable for you. I do think the advantage of social media right now is that there are so many women of all hair types and textures that are growing out their silver that no matter what your hair currently looks like, there is someone that you can relate to, that you can have a visual representation of what the journey will look like. Some people do the big chop. That's what I did, but that may not be for you. If you have long hair, you may not want to cut all your hair off, and I think that's perfectly okay. Another way that you can consider growing your hair out, these 66-year-old need to switch it up. Because there are so many options now as it relates to protective hairstyles, you can use a protective hairstyle to grow your hair out. For example, half wigs. If your hair is growing out and maybe you have 2 or 3 inches of grow out in the front, you can actually use a silver or gray half wig that matches your hair texture and type to help you through the transitioning and the grow out phase. And I have some tutorials on how to use half wigs, and that may be helpful. Clip-ins. Again, there are so many different options for us now as it relates to protective styles if you want to do something to just help ease that transition. Now, a few weeks ago, I had an interesting conversation with a woman who was considering going gray. She's currently coloring her hair. The dye that she's using is a very dark brown. And so what she did, she went into a wig shop and she put on a silver gray wig to try to get an idea of what her hair would look like. And she immediately hated it, but it was too much of a shock to the system visually to go straight from dark hair to now you have stark white hair. You need the emotional transition, and you need to become accustomed to seeing and envisioning how your hair will look in a more gradual way. If you're coloring your hair a dark color, I would say putting on a wig may not be the best way to get an indication of whether you'll like your silver or gray hair. I think the slow transition is best. What helped me stay confident? I felt uncomfortable with dyed hair because I had not ever dyed my hair before. And again, that's my personal story, but that is why I immediately tried to figure out how to get back to normal because I frankly just didn't feel comfortable in my skin. How do you keep your silver gray hair soft and hydrated without weighing it down? Maison 276, which is a hair care system for silver gray and blonde hair. The innovation of the 3-step system is that all the products are white. They're not purple. And so you don't have to worry about adding unwanted color to your hair. Also, because silver gray hair is structurally different than melanated hair, those products are actually formulated to address the unique needs of silver and gray hair and mature hair in general because that hair is drier. So if you're coloring your hair, that's fine. I always say I'm not the silver police, but you do need to realize that the products that you used when you were 30 or 40 or before you had silver or gray hair may no longer work because they're not addressing the needs of that new hair. Just because you put color or rinses on your silver or gray hair, it only changes the color. It doesn't change the structure. So you need products that help your hair retain moisture. You also need gentle cleansers. So you want to stay away from products and ingredients that strip the hair. And those are things like phosphates, sulfates, parabens. Phosphates and sulfates are very strong detergents, and they're found in a lot of cleaning ingredients. And so while you would never think of washing your hair with detergents, when you use products that have phosphates and sulfates, that's what you're doing. You're stripping your hair of moisture. Now, when it comes to weighing the hair down, I am a fan of less is more as it relates to almost everything beauty related. And so I would say use as few products as possible. Okay. What's your current wash day routine, step by step, from shampoo to styling? I use the Maison 276 three-step system. The brightening step, and in fact, the entire three-step system is designed to be customized to your personal hair care needs. So I use step one, the brightener, every single time I shampoo because, as you can see, I have a lot of white hair. And so I use that to ensure that I don't get any dullness or discoloration. Then I use the cleanse shampoo. Most of the time, I only need one cycle of the shampoo. If you get a rich, thick lather with the first shampoo, you don't need to shampoo again. And then I move on to the Restore conditioner, and I use that as a leave-in regardless of how I'm going to be styling my hair. And then I also apply a few drops of the Revive serum because I'm using that oil to lock in the moisture and the conditioners that I've infused in my hair from the previous 3 steps. One of the most frequently asked questions about silver gray hair, regardless of the type and texture, is how do you prevent yellowing or dullness? Now, we just talked about the fact that the structure changes and it doesn't have melanin. And because it has no melanin, no color, everything that you put on your hair that has color, your hair is going to absorb it. And that's why purple shampoos are so problematic because the hair is absorbing those purple dyes and it's causing the dullness in your silver gray hair. Which is why I created the 3-step system because it's designed to remove that dullness and discoloration without purple dyes. All of the products are white. Many hair products have ingredients and then they have dyes that can be absorbed by silver or gray hair. So it is really imperative that when you are choosing any type of styling product, you want products that are creamy white or clear because otherwise the colors in that product is going to be attached to your hair. Heated styling tools are another culprit. The vast majority of the time, the manufacturer's recommended temperatures for styling tools are too high for silver and gray hair. You're essentially burning your hair, and that's where that yellowing comes from. Oftentimes, stylists will use the same temperature for everyone's hair. That is going to be too hot for your silver hair. So turn the temperature down. And before you use any heated styling product, use a heat protectant. I use 2. I use the Design Essentials Thermal Strengthening Serum. And if I'm going to curl my hair, because I don't just want a heat protectant, I want something that combats frizz, then I use the Redken Frizz Dismiss. Both clear, oil-based heat protectant serums. And then finally, the sun. Just like melanin is a type of protection for skin, it also is a type of protection for hair. And once your hair no longer has melanin, it is super sensitive to sun exposure. So if you live in a climate where you're exposed to the sun all the time, just like SPF is a necessity for your skin, a heat protectant is a necessity for your hair to protect your hair from sun damage. Neither of those are things you only use on vacation. Another common cause of yellowing in hair is the water that we use. Now, this is not something you can necessarily do something about, but some areas have water that have a much higher mineral content. And if that's the case, you may definitely see a lot more yellowing than, say, someone who has the same type of hair but lives in a community whose water has less minerals. So if you're in a community whose water has a high mineral content, then you may experience a lot more yellowing. You can't change the water, but you can make sure that you use a brightener more often to make sure that you're lifting that dullness and discoloration. Now, how do you know if your water has a lot of minerals? Look at your faucets, whether it's the shower, the kitchen, any faucet. And if you have an excessive amount of that white, sometimes it's green, buildup around your shower heads and your faucets, then you know that you have a high mineral content. And so my recommendation would be to use that brightening step every time you shampoo, because you want to make sure that you're not getting that mineral buildup on your hair, because that will also contribute to the dryness. You want to make sure that you're using the conditioner every time you shampoo. You want to do a lot of deep conditioning to just offset those environmental factors that you have no control over. How do you control frizz? I am a Gulf Coast girl. I was born and raised on the Gulf Coast, so I understand humidity. The first key to controlling frizz is to make sure that your hair is well conditioned. I do a deep conditioning mask at least twice a month, especially in winter when the air is drier. I use the Restore conditioner and a heated conditioning cap, and I sit under that for about 30 to 40 minutes. And I leave that conditioner in. I don't rinse it out because, again, I'm using it as a leave-in. But the heat from the heated conditioning cap really helps get those conditioning agents into the hair follicles. The other step to controlling frizz is using heat protectant. How often do you trim your hair? And how do you deal with split ends on gray hair? I trim my hair as needed, but at the very least, I would say every 3 months. But I've always been someone that trims a lot. So I don't have one definitive style that I wear my hair, but I will say when I flat iron it or curl it a lot, I am definitely going to trim it more often. Now, if you're finding that you feel like you need to trim your hair or with a lot of frequency, it may be that you're not trimming all of the damaged hair, or that you may be doing something to your hair that's causing damage, like maybe over manipulation, using heating tools that are too hot, or not using heat protectants when you do use those heating tools. What's your go-to quick everyday hairstyle when you're busy? This is it. The ponytail clip-ins. Now, these are the straight clip-ins. For this style, I actually do have to flat iron my hair, but the curly clip-ins that are like my curly hair texture, that's a no heat style, and that's actually the absolute fastest when I'm in a hurry. How do you get your ponytail styles to look so thick and chic? I think a ponytail is one of the most versatile styles that you can have, because you can dress it up, you can dress it down. I've got sweatpants on now, but this is also a style that I've worn to black tie events. First of all, I do have clip-ins, and so that is what is adding the length. I use 5 of the 6 clip-ins that come in the pack, but you can certainly use as few or as much as you need to get the volume and the length that you want in your ponytails. I use a clear gel around the edges. If it's really humid and I'm just concerned about my hair reverting, then I will put a little bit of styling gel in the palm of my hands, do this, and then just kind of lay everything down. But the number one tip for a sleek, elegant ponytail, in my opinion, is to wrap your hair in a silk scarf. I set my ponytail, the edges and the top, for a minimum of 30 minutes with a satin scarf. That style will last me all day long, and my hair will not budge. What are your best tips for using clip-ins so they look natural? Clip-ins, like any other type of new style that you're learning, you just need to practice with your hair. Everyone's density and fullness is different, and that's really the key to getting the most out of your clip-ins. You just have to experiment with how many you need. How far apart do the clip-ins need to be? My hair is relatively thick, and so I can put my clip-ins a half inch apart from each other and still achieve a full look without anything showing through. I'm a fan of clip-ins and half wigs. I think they're great to mix things up for a new look without committing to a haircut. I think they're great as a protective style, and I think they're great for trying new styles before you commit. The most important thing is to get the texture right and the color right, because there are so many variations of silver gray, right? You've got the stark white hair, the gray, the silver, and then the kind of pewter color. The good news is that there are a lot of companies now that carry products for silver gray hair and that have variations beyond the traditional 50-50 salt and pepper, which doesn't work for someone like me. And so I would say, do your research, find the companies that have your texture match and your color match. And then I would say make sure that you can return the items, because sometimes you can see a product online and then when you get it, it's not exactly what you think it is, or it may not be the perfect match for your hair. So I would definitely look at the return policy. But at the end of the day, getting the texture and the color right are paramount. By the way, I have a full tutorial on every type of hairstyle that I'm going to discuss. So there'll be links to all of those tutorials down in the description. Is protective styling safe for gray hair? And how do you protect your edges and your scalp? Protective styles are great for everyone to not only give your hair a break, but also to experiment with a new look, to try a new style without making a commitment and without changing your current style. So protective styles are very safe. Many of them, like the clip-ins and the half wigs, they come with these little combs that are about 1.5 inches wide. And the key is to make sure that you're adhering the comb right above the part in your scalp, but there's no pulling. You should not feel anything. If you feel something, then that means the clip-in is applied incorrectly or it's somehow pulling on your scalp too tight. No protective style should hurt. Remember that. No protective style should hurt. In fact, I don't even think about these clip-ins because I can't feel anything. And that's how a protective style should be. It should not be uncomfortable. What is the biggest mistake women make with their gray hair care? I think there are 3. One, not accounting for the structural changes in your hair, in that your gray and silver hair is drier. So you need to pivot to products that are specifically formulated for gentle cleansing, extra conditioning, and moisture retention so that it remains hydrated and healthy. That protects against the frizziness, that protects against the wiryness, the brittleness, and split ends. You want to make sure that you do deep conditioning. You've got to condition your hair maybe more often than you did maybe 10, 15, or 20 years ago. You want to address the yellowing, protect your hair from heat, whether those are styling tools like blow dryers, flat irons, curling wands. Never use a heated styling tool without a heat protectant. And also protect your hair from UV damage, meaning the sun. Sunscreen is not for vacation only, and heat protectants and UV protection for your hair is also not for vacation only. Whenever your hair is exposed to the sun, you have the risk of basically getting sunburned hair. So make sure you're using a heat protectant. Use products that are specifically designed for the unique needs of mature hair, because everyone won't get as much white hair as I have. That's strictly based on genetics. But as we mature, just like our skin needs extra TLC to make sure that it remains hydrated and healthy, our hair needs the same thing. I'm considering embracing my gray hair, but I'm concerned that it's going to make me look old and dated. Next to yellowing, this is probably one of the biggest concerns around silver gray hair. The silver gray hair is not what dates you. It's the haircut. Your haircut has more to do with maintaining a modern, updated look than your hair color. Chances are, if you're still wearing the same hairstyle that you wore in the 80s, no matter how much you color your hair, that may be the thing that's dating you. A modern, updated haircut will ensure that your look remains vibrant, contemporary, and updated. This is not about recapturing your youth. This is about being the very best version of your current self. I want to embrace my silver hair, but my family doesn't want me to. I am still shocked by the number of times I get this question or this issue. It is still astonishing to me that people think that they can dictate what any woman, but let alone a woman who is 40, 50, 60 or beyond, what she can do with the hair growing out of their head. You have earned the right to do whatever you want to, whether that is to continue to color your hair or to embrace your silver or gray. You don't need anyone's permission to be your authentic self and to present yourself in a way that makes you feel comfortable in your own skin. Opinions about your hair have more to do with them than to do with you, and they need to deal with whatever those personal issues are. That is my opinion on other people telling you what to do with your hair. Why did you start Maison 276? I am very much an unintentional entrepreneur. I never set out to start a beauty company. My career is in healthcare administration, and I worked in financial services for several years as well. I was simply trying to solve a personal pain point as having lived my entire life with this hair problem. Not that my hair was a problem, but taking care of it was a problem because the purple shampoos turned my hair purple. I spent all of my adult life struggling with products to take care of my hair. Even though I haven't always had this much white hair, even when I just had the streak, it was white. And so I still wanted that streak to be bright. I didn't want yellowing. And the purple shampoos were just problematic. And as I got more and more white hair, it became a bigger problem. And so in my mid-50s, I just began experimenting with making products in the kitchen. And that is how I came up with the 3-step system. It was something I created to take care of my own hair. And my friends found out that I was making beauty products, and they were my first customers. And I created products at night and on the weekends while I had a very full and demanding job as a healthcare administrator. It was a very organic growth, and this passion project took on a life of its own. And at 60, I completely pivoted and changed careers at a time when most people are planning retirement. So if you're interested in making midlife pivots and how I did it, how I built a company from my kitchen to the shelves of Walmart, I would love to share that with you. So let me know in the DMs. One, if you have questions about making midlife pivots, but also if you have questions about anything that we've discussed today, my most frequently asked questions about silver and gray hair care. Silver hair is not difficult. It's just different. And once you know how to treat the unique needs of your mature hair, regardless of whether you color your silver hair or not, or whether you have a few strands or almost fully white like me, you can have beautiful, healthy, vibrant, gorgeous hair at every age and every stage. So thank you so much for joining me on this episode of The Beauty of Aging. As always, you know I love chit-chatting with you in the DMs. That's how this content was created. And if you have more questions or more topics you'd like for me to do a deep dive Q&A on, let me know. Don't forget to join us every Friday at 10 o'clock Eastern. We stream live right here on YouTube, also on Facebook and Instagram. We talk about a lot of topics, but there are all issues that are important to you, the woman who's unapologetically growing bolder. And remember, all of the products that I've mentioned, the tools that I've mentioned, as well as tutorials where I show you a lot of the techniques that I've talked about today, all of those are going to be down in the description. including a coupon code for the clip-ins that I currently have. Thanks for joining me. Take care, and I'll see you the next time on The Beauty of Aging. Bye, y'all.